Welcome back to Ottawa Now. There was a study led by Cedars-Sinai Hospital in LA, and it was done last September. It found that while COVID-19 was associated with an increase in heart attacks in all age groups, those between the ages of 25 and 44 saw the highest increase. Joining us now, epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, Raywat Deonandan. Welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Do we know why this is happening?
Well, we think of COVID as an airborne vasculitis, meaning some kind of agent that increases the inflammation in arteries. So it's probably is caused by two factors. One is the increased inflammation, as I mentioned, and the other might just be added stress on the heart, like increased heart rate, low oxygen levels, and so forth. But there's still a lot to be learned. The bottom line is it's not a good thing. Don't get infected.
Why do we think it's impacting people in the younger age group?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. Frankly, I have no idea. But it is concerning. I will add, though, that it seems to be increasing heart attack rates across the board, all age groups. It's just that it may be a detection bias. We may be noticing it more in people who are less likely to have heart issues. So suddenly they go from 0 to 100 faster.
Is there any difference when we see somebody having heart-related problems after COVID if they're 55 versus 35?
It depends on how bad the heart-related problem is. Like, I'm not a cardiologist. I can't speak authoritatively about this. But if you're younger and stronger, chances are you have a better path towards recovery. On the other hand, having a heart incident when you're younger means you have more years to deal with it. You have a more impaired lifestyle going forward. Not to say that you can't recover from this. It's just a bigger toll on your overall lifespan. None of this is good, and hopefully we can figure out a way to treat and prevent it in the future. I hasten to add that it seems that amongst those who get infected, those who are vaccinated are less likely to have these cardiovascular outcomes. So vaccination is good, even though as compared to people who don't get COVID at all, the vaccinated have a slightly, minutely higher chance of myocarditis and pericarditis, which is not heart attack. That's swelling around the heart membrane. But yeah, at least one dose of vaccination, if you end up being infected, reduces your chances of heart attack overall.
I'm glad you addressed that because, as you and I know, misinformation can run wild on this. And we see stories and we see tweets and we see social media posts being shared about young athletes suddenly collapsing or younger people that die of heart-related problems. And the speculation on misinformation sites is that it had to do with the vaccine.
Exactly. And by the way, sudden deaths like this have been common for decades, if not longer. We've been noticing this for many, many years, especially amongst athletes for mysterious reasons. It's just that now there's an additional source of that sudden death, and it looks to be COVID infection. So as I've been telling everyone who will listen, live your life, but try your best not to get infected if you can. Take reasonable steps. And if you've been infected already, take steps not to get reinfected. And one of the best steps to take is to get up to date on all your COVID vaccines.
Let's talk about the research side. I mentioned that one study done in LA. How much work is being done looking into this?
I don't know offhand, but my ear to the ground suggests that this is a topic of great concern amongst many cardiologists. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at a torrent of new research projects arising from this. COVID has a lot more to offer us, both good and bad. There's going to be a flood of additional research going on around therapeutics, preventatives, long-term impacts of COVID, long COVID, neurological impacts of COVID, brain fog, whatever it might be. This is just one more nasty thing waiting for us. We have not heard the last of the impacts of COVID in our society. This is going to be a decades-long endeavor.
Now that we are pretty much 3 years deep into this, and by this I mean everything, I'm gesturing broadly at the world around us. There are some big questions still about the long-term impact of COVID, as you just alluded to. What are some of yours as an epidemiologist? What are you curious about?
The immune dysregulation is one that has me a bit worried. Some immunologists claim that COVID infection has an aging impact on our immune systems. Others claim that's overstated. So it's hard to say where the data lies right now. It depends on which studies you look at. So if, in fact, it is an immune dysregulating infection, that means those who get infected and reinfected are at greater risk of other infections from other diseases down the road. And that might open the door to new epidemics of things that we thought were under control. That's worrying. So I hope we can get a handle on that. And I'm hoping that, again, vaccination reduces that likelihood. That's a big one. The brain fog continues to be a problem. A certain fraction of individuals who get infected have long-term neurological and cognitive impairments, which, of course, is life-altering and not a good way. That's worrying, too. But to me, the big one is the immune dysregulation, if, in fact, it turns out to be real. And I don't want to hastily add the jury is still out on that. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, so what I'm about to say, I want to be clear, is anecdotal. This is just plucked from my own personal life, but I personally know a few people that still struggle with brain fog. And I also know 2 or 3 people that now have developed allergies out of nowhere, allergies they didn't have before to animals, to dust mites. They've developed a problem to the point where they have to take allergy medication, or they have urticaria, which is just known as hives. And some of those people have gone to allergists who have then told them that they've seen an uptick in patients. So personally, again, all of that is anecdotal. I'd be interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, we have to be careful to, again, restate this is all anecdotal. We don't know for sure. This is the beginning of wisdom. Asking these questions is the beginning of the process. Then we have well-structured studies to have something resembling a definitive answer about whether or not these trends are real. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves here.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's a temptation as somebody who's from the science world, it's important to be skeptical. There's a temptation that if something happens and, oh, this popped up, must be COVID, blame it on COVID.
Right, and we can't do that because that's what the anti-vaxxers do when it comes to the vaccines. It must be the vaccines, right? So we can't fall down that trap as well. However, it is prudent and scientifically sane to do the appropriate investigations. If you notice this kind of signal, either in your own practice if you're a clinician, or in data sets as they emerge, then we do deeper investigations. So epidemiologists will look at a large data set and see, are these things happening more so than otherwise expected? And then from that point, investigate at a laboratory level to see what the possible mechanisms are. So we're not there yet, but you allude to some interesting and problematic concerns. I suspect we're going to see all kinds of troubling signals in the population because we have this unique situation where a large number of people around the world have been infected by a new thing simultaneously. Some rare adverse events are going to manifest. And when I say rare, I'm talking about a percentage of people, but a small percentage of a large number. It's going to be a large number of people. So again, let's not have people panic about this. Let's just say we have a lot of work to do as scientists, and that means more funding, more research, and hopefully more therapeutics and vaccines.
At last check, this was in September, Canadian Blood Services said, according to their donations, 70 to 80% of younger Canadians had been infected as of last summer. I wonder where it would be now.
Yeah, probably over 90% if I could pull a number out of thin air. We'll get to the point where pretty much everyone has been infected at least once. I haven't been infected yet. I hope to delay that as long as I possibly can. And hopefully we'll get to the point where we get mucosal vaccines. Like India has a mucosal vaccine, and I'm waiting for data to see if that's working to prevent actual transmission at a high level. And if we get those in place quickly and with large enough uptake, then we can stop this thing pretty quickly and get back to real normality sometime soon.
Thank you for the thoughtful conversation. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa.